Seniors lose billions yearly to scams. Often silently, they are too afraid to tell you. Today, I'm going to show you how to spot scams early and help protect your senior loved one. Welcome to inHom Senior Care. My name is Vitaly. I am so glad that you're here today. So, why are seniors targeted? Let's kind of clear this up. People who fall for scams are not stupid. They're being manipulated, and oftentimes the most susceptible people are the people who are most caring for others and the most trusting, right? Because it is that emotional level that the scammers will go after to cause someone to want to be helpful and help this person that's potentially in need. And that's how many of the scams are perpetrated. So scammers often target seniors because they may be more trusting. They've lived most of their life in a time where society was more trusting. You know, things like they never locked their doors, or they knew all their neighbors and everyone supported one another. And the second reason is because they're more isolated, right? They don't have as much support necessarily. Many seniors live alone, so even if they have family connections, they're not necessarily living with family, and so no one's there, and so they are isolated, and they're less familiar with new technology. Maybe they're even dealing with memory issues or just cognitive challenges, and in general, the whole world seems to be running at a much faster pace than it used to be, and the older we get, those things tend to confuse us a bit. So scammers are professionals at creating fear, urgency, and confusion. And they know exactly, which emotional button to push to sort of push someone over the edge and cause them, to potentially fall for this. So leave a comment. I would love to hear from you. Leave a comment if you have ever experienced this, if you've had a senior scam or a scam happen to a senior loved one or even yourself, and how you went about dealing with it, or maybe even what it was, because scammers are becoming more and more creative, and they're coming out with newer and newer ways. So some of the things that we'll go through today in terms of the common scams that we see are things that I'll talk about here. I won't be able to really dive into a lot of detail on each one. I'll maybe profile some of these just a little bit more, and each of these could probably use their own video to dive into more detail, and maybe we'll do that at some point. But so we'll start with phone scams. They're still one of the biggest threats, because the phone and the ability to talk to a person has that potential to be able to manipulate or play on somebody's emotion. You just think about the idea of, why is the used car dealer or dealership, and the idea that everybody hated to kind of deal with a used car dealership, right? Because there's manipulation tactics that person will use. They will try to pressure someone into doing something that they don't necessarily really want to do, but those guys become very good at it. Well, this is somewhere in there. So the phone scams would include like fake IRS or Social Security calls. The urgency is in the fact that there's threats about arrest or loss of benefits. In other words, the IRS is calling and you owe an amount, and there's been there is an arrest warrant out for you, right? Here is that fear building, and we need to take care of this immediately before the police come knocking on your door to arrest you, right? So you could see how that fear could really, really cause somebody to panic and try to rectify this situation. Remember, these people, our seniors, are responsible people, and to be told that you owe money and you've been negligent in taking care of your taxes is a very, a serious thing to them, and they will pay attention to it. And maybe the Social Security is saying that, you're going to lose benefits unless we get this, you pay for this program, those types of things. The grandparent scam is another one, and this is where, again, this would probably need its own video to get into the depth of it. But the idea is that you get a call and saying, so your grandson is in jail, maybe in Mexico, maybe in another country, and he needs X amount of dollars to be able to be released. And of course, Following that, you're going to hear, "Oh, please don't tell mom and dad. They're going to kill me if I hear about if they hear about this." Right? So there's the whole secrecy thing where they want to be able to keep that under wraps. I just need X amount of dollars and then I'll be okay. Everything will be okay, right? And what grandparent doesn't want to help their grandson or their granddaughter, when they're in a sticky situation? So online or email scams are also very common because as seniors are using laptops or tablets, and so using them and being able to read their emails and go through that, again, they become susceptible to potential scams that come through there, like fake bank or Amazon emails, where a bank says you're overdrawn, you need to deposit some money, and they would, maybe panic and click on the link, and of course, trouble only comes after that. Or messages saying that there is a problem with their account. And maybe a pop-up on their computer saying there's your computer has a virus, right? And then there's a phone number that you call and they will help take care of this virus, which in reality, they're actually going to log into the account or potentially ask for money to take care of the problem, or potentially actually lock up the computer and to say you need to pay X amount of dollars for us to release this. By the way, this is a scam that's hit hospitals and corporations, other companies. So you don't have to be necessarily a senior to be targeted for that. This stuff that goes on because of how sophisticated scammers are continuing to become. Romance scams are especially heartbreaking, right? So it's they're targeting seniors who many times are living alone and they're lonely, and so someone reaches out and over time builds an emotional connection, an emotional relationship online, gaining trust over weeks and sometimes months. And then at some point, oh boy, they're in such a rough spot, they need some money, they need some help. And of course, the senior is many times their heart is torn, and they want to help this person, and especially this person who they believe is actually maybe at this point a significant other for them and someone who they met who really cares for them. The main thing, like with scams, to keep in mind is that they often ask the senior to keep the relationship a secret, and then a secrecy is a huge red flag, right? Like anytime you're dealing with things that are secret, don't tell your family, like the whole isolation component of it, those are things to keep in mind. In-person scams still happen too. So these could be fake contractors where they're knocking on doors and they're saying, we're replacing roofs in a neighborhood, and like your roof looks like it could need it. Many of these they're operated on like too good to be true models, meaning the roof in reality might cost $15,000 or more, and they might offer you a crazy price of like $3,000, $5,000, and so you'd be foolish not to take advantage of it, because they're in this neighborhood and they're just giving these bottom prices to make sure that they can stay there and work, rather than having to go all over the place, where in reality you will never see that person again once the money's gone. Utility workers or someone claiming urgent home repairs are needed, right? Your foundation is crumbling and you need to get this done, or you could have a disaster on your hands. Or even fundraising for causes, right? All sorts, whether it's save the animals of some way, save the children, help with whatever, right? The point being, you don't know who these people are, and many times they might even be presenting or using a legitimate nonprofit that they really have no connection to, right? So they might flash and show logos or information of a legitimate organization that you may even recognize, but they themselves are not really a part of it. They're just out and they're trying to scam people for money, and so that money is not really going to that organization. It's being funneled into their own needs. So if there's pressure to act immediately, that is a warning sign, right? So key red flags, kind of a simple rule to remember: urgency plus secrecy equals danger. right? So urgency plus secrecy, like this is a special deal. You can't tell anyone, right? Like we can't just promote this because everybody would want this deal. So this is just for you. Please keep it a secret. Don't tell anyone, right? Those kinds of things. So as a caregiver, watch your loved one for sudden secrecy around money, right? Like they're not willing to talk to you. They're not willing to share things with you. Maybe anxiety after phone calls or emails. Maybe you can see that in them. They take a phone call or they're nervous about it. Are there new friends that they are interacting with? Maybe that phone call was from a friend and they have this conversation. You're like, who is that? And they don't really want to tell you. It's none of your business. This is, so some of those things are significant red flags. Financial warning signs. So I would recommend, of course, if you're helping your senior loved one, help them in this area, get on accounts with them, of course, with their permission, and of course with part of larger family planning for this person, but be their advocate and help them with this. So maybe large or unusual withdrawals, right? Checks being written to organizations or people who you don't recognize, or maybe even people you recognize, but maybe it's still a red flag, right? Family is not excluded from this potential in this list because sometimes financial exploitation happens by those closest to the senior. And so keeping that in mind to make sure that it's your job as a caregiver to protect them, not only from the external, but sometimes from a neighbor, sometimes from family, right? Because neighbors and neighbor relations are great, but if checks are being written to a neighbor with no real explanation, or to one of the kids or grandkids in sums and there's no explanation, those are red flags. Pay attention to that. Gift card purchases. Gift cards are used by scammers to be able to use the gift cards as something that they can spend money with, but many of those scams involve going to a store, a Best Buy or another electronics store, and then buying significant amounts of cards, of gift cards that get sent to someone, and then those are, scammers use them to purchase electronics and whatnot. But of course, like red flag, if your mom bought $3,000 worth of gift cards, that's not a likely scenario that she's bought those to just give out to the grandkids. That's a significant sum of money. Or unpaid bills or missing money. So if there's bills that aren't getting paid, right, it's a sign both in the fact that your mom probably needs some help managing some of this, but it also might mean that maybe the money that should have gone to bills has gotten spent on something else and the bills aren't getting paid, or just missing money in the account, right? Like there should be, like when I help my mom, I kind of have an idea. I know how much floats through that bank or through that account each month. And if all of a sudden that account was overdrawn by a significant amount, it'd be a huge red flag to me that something's going on. Something just happened that should not have happened. Emotionally, you may notice like shame or fear, or statements like, please don't tell anyone. I feel so embarrassed, right? Because when they get taken by someone and they were eager to help and they were eager to what they thought do the right thing, ended up being now it's a great source of shame and embarrassment for them because they were able to be taken in by the scammer. So here's how caregivers can prevent scams. The most powerful tool that you have really is conversation, right? To be able to help explain to your loved one about the fact that this is real. I mean, there's people out there who prey on seniors specifically because seniors, they consider seniors to be an easier target, right? Not lectures, not warnings, but just a conversation to say, I care for you. I want to make sure that I'm here to help you, with this because it's potentially something that, we may encounter. So use calm, respectful language. Like scammers are getting really convincing, and especially with technology. Can we agree to double check things together, right? Like And you can reverse this and say, do you remember when I was a teenager, and if I was going to go do something, you would have wanted me to check with you and to get your feedback and your help in making sure that I didn't make a foolish decision. Well, I want to be here to help you to make sure that we can double check. If it's a donation to an organization that maybe you really actually care for and you'd like to help, can we together make sure that that is a real organization, that this isn't some person pretending to be a part of that, but it may not even be that. But let's work on this together, right? Some simple safeguards, and I won't get into them, specifically or detailed here, but there's call blocking tools that you can use to really avoid those calls altogether. Because if we don't have that conversation, if your mom or your dad or your aging loved one doesn't have that conversation on a phone, they're way less likely to be emotionally manipulated into doing something that they don't really want to do. Bank alerts, right? So setting up bank alerts to have the bank issue a red flag warning to potentially you as you help your senior walk through these things. And so you would know if there's something that's being potentially put through the bank that may need some scrutiny, and then become a trusted contact with the financial institution. So, again, getting on the accounts so that you can have a second set of eyes to make sure that if something is about to go through, they would potentially let you know, hey, this is about to happen. Are you good with this, right? So create a family rule that no money or personal information without checking first. Again, depending on the level of cognitive decline, that rule may be difficult to enforce or remember for your senior loved one, but it's a good idea to have that. Say, well, so your mom could have the ability to say, I don't make these kinds of decisions on my own. I'll have to talk to my daughter and then we can get back to you. Why don't I take your contact information, right? Because this is where the whole thing breaks down, because the scammers want it now and you can't tell anyone because this is something is just between me and you, and the deal is only available now. It's all those things. It's the urgency and the secrecy that the minute you talk about, we'll have this discussion with family, it all falls apart. So that's where a lot of it doesn't even go past that. So, and then make sure that your senior loved one understands this, that if something goes wrong, they're not in trouble, right? Like we've all made dumb decisions, financial decisions that, even sometimes same day we're like, oh my goodness, I can't believe I just agreed to this or I just did that, right? And so just helping them to not feel like we're there to chastise them or we're getting them into trouble. So if a scam's already happened, if you suspect it's taken place, just stay calm. Blame shuts people down. So you don't want to blame them and say, I can't believe you did that. I can't believe you fell for that, right? Because if it's already happened, there's probably chances are that it may be very little that you can do to reverse it. And so that emotional heaviness that you can bring into that equation is not going to help with anything. And so all you can really do is maybe take a few practical steps that may potentially still help. So like contacting the bank or the credit card company, right? Securing the accounts, making sure maybe you have to close that account and open up a new one because maybe that one's compromised, and then report the incident when appropriate to police, to the bank, and making sure that, potentially, again, very, very little can be done in many of these situations. A lot of these people are overseas and in places where our law enforcement can't necessarily reach them, but we still want to do that as much as possible because if nothing else, there's education that's gained for the community in terms of there's always new scams that come out and people fall for, right? We even had one, to be quite frank, within the office, right? We had an employee that requested, or we thought it was an employee that requested to change their banking information for their direct deposit through payroll. And guess what? They never sent that. And so we were able to, it didn't actually cause any harm. We were able to, but we did make the change. The person in our office actually made the change within the payroll system to the new banking information. And then our payroll company actually flagged it and said, "Are you sure? Did you actually talk to so-and-so?" And we said, "Well, no, we got an email from them and we followed what they wanted." And then we said, "Oh, okay, well," so we reached out to that employee and they said, "Oh, no, I never changed. I never asked for it." So, and many times this is a thing too. So you'll see somebody's email and you see their name. And if you hover over with your cursor, you will see that that email doesn't actually match their email. So they're spoofing it to make it look like a person when it's actually somebody different. So again, these things are prevalent, and so make sure that you reassure your loved one. This happens to good people. We'll handle this together. And this might be that opportunity. So if there has been a resistance to having you in the equation to help, this could potentially be that open door to say, you know what, maybe it's a great idea that you could help me because I thought for sure I did the right thing, and obviously somebody took advantage of me. So in closing, scammers succeed in silence. And so protection starts with that conversation to try and figure out what is it that we're trying to do, and how do we make sure that we're a team together to protect one another, right? So if you're a caregiver or a concerned family member, start that conversation this week and just be there and look at potentially, am I in a good position to actually watch out for and protect my senior loved one? Or is this just kind of a thing waiting to happen, right? Almost like an accident waiting to happen. So share this video with someone who could use it. Again, comment if you've had any of these interactions or those phone calls where you recognized it or maybe you got taken in. The more that people share, the more we all learn and we all become wiser for the, for down the road. So because protecting seniors is one of the most loving things we can do, again, because we all need each other. So when we're little babies, we need a caregiver to help us to learn all the different things until we can walk and do things for ourselves. And when we age and we get old, we will need someone to help us, finish our life in many different ways. At some point it'll be physical, but during the earlier parts it may be emotional and just helping with some of these things. So if you found this video helpful, please like, share, and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one. Thank you.